Well, Rick, we've reached the end of the high school basketball season. It's hard to believe, and we've had a great year, and this past week saw some tremendous personal milestones reached.
Yeah, we did. We've had three players in Berkshire County. Reese set up at Drury with a milestone. Scott McGuire, his teammate, and Gwendolyn Carpenter, the sharpshooting senior down at Mount Everett, with another quite an accomplishment.
And now we head to tournament time coming up next week, and we've got teams from Hoosick Valley, Drury, that are in, and McCann, that are in the Western Mass tournament in the respective divisions. And we're going to have a live seating show this Saturday at 1 o'clock right here on channel 1302. You don't want to miss it. We're going to have special guests, and we're going to have the seatings right out as they become announced by the MIAA, and that's going to come up.
Think about it. Think about it.
And welcome everybody again to our last show of High School Basketball Weekly during the regular season. I'm Tim Morey alongside of my co-hosts Rick Bua. And Rick, it's been a great season. We've had a lot of great games and a lot of great events to cover in high school basketball right here in Berkshire County. And we're going to get right into it as we review really the final week of our regular season here. And we're going to start on the boys' side. And you're going to start with a team that's going to be playing in the Division IV Western Mass tournament, and that is the McCann Hornets.
Yeah, we start off with McCann quite often on this show, Tim, with the boys, and Coach Chris Bullitt kids played pretty good basketball. They had an 8-game winning streak, snapped at home against Mount Greylock the other night, lost a tough one down at Duggan, so I split with them. Right. But they had a very, very good season in the Tri-County North, finishing second and handing Bay State the league winner. Their only loss of the season in the league. But the Hornets lost that game at Duggan 72-61. Bruce Davis led the way with 17, and freshman Logan Davis had 11. They beat Pioneer Valley Christian in a makeup game 75-57. Logan Davis, the freshman, with 20, Bruce Davis 19. So the Davis boys really turning it on last week. And last night, senior night, with senior Jeremy Beanie being tributed just before the show, knocked off Franklin Tech 75-41. Bruce Davis, again, had a great week, 23. Tom Zimba off the bench with 11, and the only senior Beanie with 10. So they finished at 14-6 and 7-2 in the Tri-County and North. And again, pretty similar season last year. They got a home game last year, Tim. They won that game against Hamden Charter. Had to go to Hopkins Academy, the number 1 seed. But hopefully Coach Bullitt will get a home game again, and he's very hopeful to make some noise this year in D4.
I think he will. Rick, they're going to get a home game. I'm pretty confident of that. Well, of course, we'll know that completely on Saturday. But I think they may even get a better seed this year. I think they're looking at a 7 seed in Division IV. And if that's the case, it kind of puts them on the right side of the bracket to be away from Drury, who I think will get the number 1 seed.
Yeah, you're going to have a slew of teams, both boys and girls in D4 this year that have qualified. And we still have our favorites at the top. We know who they are, but I still think there's a lot of teams that can make some noise, and the Hornets are definitely one of them.
Team we talked about last week, Rick, the Mount Greylock Mounties. They were on a roll at the end of the season, and they were playing for their tournament lives. And they had a great finish this season. Unfortunately, they came up just a little bit short.
Yeah, after our last week's show, Coach Bob Thistle's young Mounties needed to win all 3 games to qualify. They were 5-10 and won a couple games, were 7-10. And yeah, they played pretty well. They beat McCann 63-43, right. So they took care of the Hornets a little bit easier at McCann than they did on the road, where they beat them in overtime earlier in the year. Derek Parrish, the freshman, with 16. Toby Fail with 15. Then they beat Lee 80-67. Lee is a very, very good ball club, Tim, in D4, and that's a great accomplishment for the Mounties to knock them off. Derek Parrish, the freshman, get this now, 42 points. Right. Toby Fail with 16. So what a bright future Coach Bob Thistle has with Toby Fail coming back for senior next year, and Derek Parrish and a slew of other kids. And then, unfortunately, just couldn't pull off the trifecta, losing at Lennox 65-60 in a close one. And what a great job Coach Thistle did, because every year his team gets better every year towards the end, and they just fell 1 game short.
And I talked with assistant coach Dave Hadley for Mount Greylock, and of course, he was disappointed the fact they did not make the tournament, but tempering that disappointment with just a lot of enthusiasm for how this squad finished the year, and looking forward to next year. The foundation is laid for them to have a really nice year coming up. They're feeling really positive about the program going forward.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine, Tim. It's a shame they just fell one game short, and it wasn't a blowout. They gave Lennox all they could. Lennox is going to be in the Division IV tournament, so we'll see them back next year for sure.
Kudos to them, and of course, a game you covered on the boys' side last week, the rivalry Drury and Hoosick Valley up at Drury, saw a big highlight for Drury.
Yeah, it was a great night overall, and the accomplishment was junior Scott McGuire's 1,000 points. The Blue Devils beat the Hurricanes 89-62. For the Hurricanes, though, Carson Meswar led the way, the freshman with 11, and his brother Casey was lights out, knocking down a couple of threes to start early in the game, and Hoosick Valley jumped all over Drury and led 14-4, 14-6, something like that. And I talked to Coach Reset after the game, and he said, yeah, they punched us right in the mouth, and we had to wake up and get going, and they did. And once the Blue Devils start to run, that's exactly what they tried to get Coach Hart's team to do, run with them, and they just couldn't keep up. But Hoosick's going to finish at 6-14. Actually, they're 6-13. They're actually playing Taconic at Hoosick Valley against what I say the Braves are the best team in Berkshire County, and quite frankly, one of the very, very best teams in all Western Mass.
There's no question about it. They're the favorites in Division II in Western Massachusetts. So this Taconic Brave team is a handful, and there's no shame in losing to that squad. They are outstanding. But of course, you were there, and Scott McGuire, their great junior. What a player.
Yeah, he didn't score for the first couple of minutes of the game, and then he kind of took over. And what he did, Tim, and you'll see it in these clips, was some great spin moves to the hoop. He knocked out a couple of outside shots, but where we're showing you was his first 13 points of the game. A lot of these on driving layups, short jumpers off the glass. They wanted to run. They pushed the ball, and you're going to see McGuire handling the ball quite often. Stops and takes a little runner and gets the roll. And then they have a play set up out of bounds where they fake the one, McGuire off the glass. He got fouled, made the free throw, and he was sitting at that point, I think, at 9 points. And then here they come, try to fast break. McGuire with the basketball, and he backs off a little bit. He takes a look. He looks for that seam. And as soon as he does, he just goes to the hoop and lays it in. And that game, 11 points. He was too shy. And there's a steal by Cove Massey. Feeds Reset. Beautiful back pass to McGuire, and he lays it in and was fouled. That's his 1,000th point right there. And Tim, he did it in an incredible two and a half years.
Yeah, absolutely.
He didn't play the first 10 games of his freshman year. He was ready for the second half and came on strong and made a lot of noise that year, and led the team in scoring last year, and will lead the team in scoring again this year. And he's leading Berkshire County with an incredible average of 25, almost 26 points a game. He's
a scorer, no doubt about it. This kid can score the basketball in a variety of different ways, which makes him so difficult to defend out there on that court. He just has a lot of skills offensively, and he's a nightmare to defense for anybody that's going to face him. And Scott McGuire, Rick, deservedly so, is our player of the week on the boys' side. And what a great year he's had, you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he, as you can see up there, 36 points against the Hurricanes last Friday. Went down to Taconic, and I'll tell you, Tim, Coach Reset's team battled Taconic. Only down 3, under 3 minutes to go before Taconic finally pulled away. Scored 27 down there and 18 in very, very few minutes last night versus Ludlow. Played maybe a little over a quarter, quite frankly, from what I understand. But he's sitting over 1,000 career points now, and they're going to need him to score in postseason along with Reset, and hopefully Coach Reset can get that third score where he really thinks he's going to need it down the stretch.
But as successful as he's been, we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to the tournament. They're looking forward to that Division IV tournament this year, and they look like they're in prime position to get the top seed there. On the girls' side of action, Rick, again, down the road, McCann, the Lady Hornets finished real strong.
They did. Coach Kathy Boudet's young Hornets finished the season at 12-8. They finished second in Franklin West at 5-3. Just behind Pope Francis. So, they didn't quite finish like they did last year, tying for that league with Smith Academy. But it was a very, very balanced league, and I talked to Coach Budai about that the other night, Tim. But they did avenge an earlier loss at Mohawk, beating Mohawk Trail 47-32. Sophomore Grace Toller with 23, and freshman point guard Izzy Lacasse with 14. So she got some great senior leadership this year, and her top scorers are all back. She'll have Lacasse as a sophomore. She'll have Grace Toller, and also Kaylee Tatro will be juniors next year. So her 3 top scorers are back, and her program is growing, and they hope to make some noise there in Division IV. Nothing that says they can't win a game and continue on and try to get those quarterfinals.
Well, it'll be interesting also for the girls this year, again, Rick, to see where in the Walker system they end up at 12-8. They lost a game or two that I thought they could have won and maybe should have won, and it may hurt them when it comes to the seeding, but I'd really like to see them get a home game.
Yeah, I would love to see them get a home game. I know the boys, I think we'll get one this year, as we said. The boys got one last year. The girls did not when they qualified last year, and I think it would be great for her program if they could get a home game. You're right, Tim. They do lose a couple of games. I was surprised when I saw the results the following morning. But you can't tell sometimes. Kaylee Tatro averages double figures, their sophomore, and they need that 1-2-3 punch, and she was out for a few games with a concussion.
Right.
But she's back now, and they're fairly healthy, and they got a nice little team down there.
The Lady Mounties of Mount Greylock, they, like the counterparts on the boys' side, finish very strong this year. Coach John Jacoby's team, kind of a younger team this go around, Rick, but they came on real strong at the end of the year.
Yeah, again, almost the same exact thing as the boys' version of Coach Thistle's team over at Greylock, where they needed to win 2 out of 3, and they split the first 2. They beat Lennox 49-34, sophomore Delaney Babcock with 15 and Maddie Ross with 12. Unfortunately, in the crossover game, lost to Monument Mountain away 56-31. They had beaten Monument at home. It's that home court thing is really tough. Sometimes it's really tough to play on the road. And pretty much as we speak, they should be in the second half now. And of course, we're here Wednesday the 20th, and Coach Jacoby's girls are playing up at Drury against the Drury Blue Devils, and they would need a win up there at Drury to qualify. So if they do, that's wonderful. Coach Jacoby's team, kudos to them, as you said, to Coach Thistle's team. If it doesn't work out for them, they're very young. They will be back. But they gave it quite an effort at the end of the season.
And speaking of the Drury, the Lady Blue Devils, Rick, that's a big game you're talking about being played right now between Drury and Mount Greylock. Drury standing at 11-8, 6-1. They've won the Southern Division, but those Lady Blue Devils, they want to get another win and see if they can inch up in the seedings for Division III in Western Massachusetts right now. But they came on strong here at the end as well.
Yeah, they beat Lee, so they won both games against the Wildcats this year, 54-38. Tess Zoido with 12, and Kayla McGrath, the freshman, with 11. Haley Shook had 10. Lost the crossover game at Hoosick, and sometimes I just think the matchups, Tim, we talked about that off camera a little earlier. Matchups are really, really tough, and sometimes it's really, really hard to break that Coach Wojcik pressure, and when Lexi and Allie are hitting their shots, it's really tough to compete against them, and they lost that one 70-37. Brooke DeGennaro was the top scorer for the Blue Devils with 15, and they're playing Greylock now. So Coach Ian Downey's team is very hopeful to finish at 12-8 and get the best seed they possibly can. They love a home game, but I'm sure if you ask them, they'll take whatever they get, and they're just happy to be in the tournament.
Right, and it looks like in division, we're going to, of course, talk a lot more about this on Saturday at 1 o'clock when we do our live broadcast, Rick. But right now, it looks like about a 10-team field for the Division III girls, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but I've got Drury somewhere in that 8, 9, maybe a 7 seed. But I think for Drury, and we'll talk more about this on Saturday, they might not be so sorry to have an 8 seed, the way this is going to line up.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about matchups, and you know the way the Berkshire County teams are, Tim. And coaches versus cancer, but who's like every year, take a look at the records of the Berkshire County teams against the teams from the Pioneer Valley, and they always, the coaches from the Pioneer Valley say it year in and year out, we've got to play more independent games against Berkshire County teams to toughen us up a little bit, because they are very physical and they're very fast, and they worry about the physicality. And I think Drury will get a first round game they'll be very competitive in and quite happy. Yeah, I agree.
Hoosick Valley, you said, of course, the crossover game. They played Drury and they handled Drury, and then Rick, they went to the always challenging Foxborough tournament. Foxborough, of course, the real power in Division II, and they split down there at Foxborough, and I think they came away with a pretty good result. Overall.
Yeah, they did, Tim. They go down there every year and play two real powerhouse teams in the Foxborough tournament. They played Scituate and beat Scituate 55-46 behind Lexi Mercer's 24 and Allie Mendel's 17, and lost last night to Foxborough 61-48 with Allie Mendel leading the way with 22. But one thing we didn't mention, Tim, is prior to that crossover game, they had to go to Pittsfield, a team that had beaten them in Cheshire a week and a half ago, and they did beat Pittsfield 45-40 in a great game down there where they actually came back.
Right.
And
they actually outscored the Lady Generals 18-2 in the final quarter to come back and win that game.
So the Hurricanes, they finish at 6-2, tying Wacona for the North, as the Drury girls did with Mount Everett in the South, and finished 16-4 overall. And we'll see come Saturday, the 23rd, with our live show where the Hurricanes end up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I've talked a little bit with head coach Ron Wojcik. He has a pretty good handle on the Walker, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we talk about the rankings. But they're in the tournament. They finished at 16-4, another solid season for the Lady Hurricanes. And our girls high school player of the week, Rick, is once again this Lexi Mercier from Hoosick Valley. She had a really outstanding performance down in the Foxborough tournament against Scituate, and of course against Drury.
Yeah, she third time winner with 14, 24, and 23 this week, and she certainly led the way in all three of those games. It's the M&M girls. It's we've been talking about for 4 years. It's Allie Mendel and Lexi Mercer. They certainly need to play their type of basketball. They both need to score in the tournament, Tim. That's for sure. You're going to get some scoring from some of the other players. You always get scoring from Annie Canales, and you get scoring from Riley Robinson. You get scoring from a lot of girls, but they're a lot like Jack Rissette's team. You can't do it all with McGuire and Rissette, and I don't think Coach Wojcik, as he gets deeper into the D3 tournament, is going to get a little bit more other than Lexi Mercer and Allie Mendel. I'm sure somebody will step up, but Lexi completing her fourth year. I can't believe how fast it's gone by.
It's amazing. Yeah, she had 8 3-pointers against Scituate and really controlled that game for Hoosick Valley. But you're right. Head coach Ron Wojcik knows he's going to face some defenses that are going to be primed to stop Mendel and Mercier, and so they're going to have to find offense from other players as they go deeper into the tournament. So Hoosick Valley, Lexi Mercier, our high school player of the week. We had another great milestone reached this week in Berkshire County, Rick, when Gwendolyn Carpenter achieved the 2000.
Yeah, Gwendolyn Carpenter, the senior guard from Mount Everett. We've been talking about her for years now. Last night, she scored her 2,000th point. An incredible talent. Just a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to cover. Little footage of her earlier this year up at Drury in a game that they came back to beat the Blue Devils in the fourth quarter and share that Southern Division title. But she's just an extremely talented ball player. She does it all. She's the point guard. She passed the basketball. She likes to drive. She can shoot the basketball. And she's been tough to stop over the years.
And people, Rick, quite frankly, people question, wow, she played a lot of teams, Southern Division, a lot of Division IV teams. I dismiss all that. You score over 2,000 points, I don't care who you're playing. That's an incredible achievement. She just had a great career, a great young lady. Hats off to Gwendolyn Carpenter. There's only one other player in girls player or player that any for that matter. Samantha Herrick scored over 2,000, and Gwendolyn Carpenter. If Mount Everett advances in that tournament, I think she stands a real good chance to be the all-time scorer.
Yeah, I think so too. She needs a few more games, but you and I have talked about Mount Everett, and we like Munson, the defending champs. You've been talking about them all year, and it'd be interesting to see where the MIA committee seats Munson and Mount Everett, but I think those two teams can make a lot of noise. And we're going to show it in a few minutes with the seedings that we have right now.
Right,
you got a 20-0 team in Renaissance out of Springfield. Tough not to see them number one, but you never know about the strength of schedule, that Walker system.
Right.
Very difficult to understand.
Well, let's get into the rankings, and we're just going to qualify this by telling people these are just our rankings. These are not the seedings. We'll actually talk about the seedings as we go forward, and of course today and on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock when you can tune right in here on Northern Berkshire Community Television. We're going to have the seedings and a live broadcast of the Western Mass seeding selections on Saturday. But let's start with Division IV girls first. You're looking at those Division IV girls. It's going to be a big field in the tournament. But here we go. We've got Renaissance. It's really hard. It's really hard to dismiss Renaissance at 20-0 at number one there.
Yeah, it really is. It's all about the schedule. I did take a quick look at Renaissance, Tim, and most of their wins were against teams with sub-500 records, but that's not their fault. You have to play in a league, and you have to play the teams. There's crossover leagues down there, and you have to take them seriously at 20-0. Ware and Munson, the defending champ, sometimes you got to be the champ, you have to get through the champ. And, of course, the team there that we know the best, of course, is Mount Everett. And co-champs of the South this year had a very, very good year. It'll be very, very interesting. I would not be surprised if Mount Everett Munson battled for the championship. We'll have to wait and see.
It'll depend to see on which side of the bracket they are, but exactly, I could agree. In the Division IV boys, we've got, of course, the team at the top of the rankings, Drury, and I think they're going to end up as the number one seed based upon their strength of schedule.
Yeah, I would think so, and I know a few people that know the Walker system a little bit think the same thing. How does a team with 17-2, 17-3 not get a seed higher than Drury? But it's that Berkshire County schedule, a Division IV team playing in the north, having to play Wauconah, Hoosick, Taconic, and PHS twice each, and that's where their losses all came from. 2 to Wauconah, 2 to Wauconah, 2 to Taconic, and 1 to PHS. So even though they had a sub-500 record in the north, that 15-5 record looks pretty good. Ware, very, very tough. Very, very tough team. Coach Reset said he respects Ware. Pioneer came to North Adams and lost to Drury about a week ago, but did play a little bit shorthanded, as they did last year in the regular season. Paulo Frieri, a team that had played Drury out this year, could make some noise. And there is a very big group right behind them. It's a big field in D4 boys also.
And, of course, Rick, you talk about Drury. We talked about Scott McGuire. He was our player of the week. But there was another tremendous milestone reached by another great player for the Blue Devils, and that's Reese Reset.
Yeah, Reese Reset is our boys spotlight player. Last night in a blowout win at home against Ludlow on senior night, Reese became the Drury all-time leading scorer with 1,374 points, surpassing Glenn Tatro on the boys' side and Taylor DeSanti on the girls' side. And you could see this coming. He played JV ball in 8th grade and started as a point guard for Drury, or got some play as a freshman. And what a ball handler he is. He makes the team better. And his MO is the driving layups, and he's developed a much better outside shot of late. But he's tough defensively, and Drury is nothing in the tournament if they don't have their 1-2 puncher for Reset and McGuire.
And Rick, you brought it up. We talked off screen. Both McGuire and Reset were able to reach these milestones this past week. But both players talked about how much they would trade it all in for a Western Mass title.
Yeah, I've talked to Reese after games on camera and off, and I've talked to Scott McGuire on camera and off, and they both said the same thing. Not just to me, but they've said it to Mass Live and the Berkshire Eagle, to iBerkshires. They said the same exact thing. I would give up the points for a Western Mass championship. And would you not want 2 kids on your team with that type of attitude?
Absolutely. That tells it all, and it shows you why they've had such successful careers at Drury. They're real competitors, but they place team over individual accomplishments, and they really, really are yearning to bring home a Western Mass title. Going to the girls' rankings on D4, we've got, we'll talk about the Division III, which is really interesting. Of course, we have Waukeena, number 1. This is going to be interesting. Waukeena 18-2, followed by Hoosick Valley, Greenfield, and South Hadley. And what's so interesting about this, Rick, looking at the Walker system, and we're going to find out, we're going to have the story told on Saturday, this could all flip. South Hadley, by virtue of the schedule that they play, might end up with the number 1 seed, and there's a pretty good chance that they will.
Yeah, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. This is the way the committee in Massachusetts runs the tournaments. We've been talking about the Walker system for a long, long time, and it's very, very complicated. Very few people are experts at it, but it's very tough to think that Waukeena, that we have at number 1 at 18-2, could possibly, and I say possibly, be a number 4.
Right.
But those top 4 teams we've been talking about all year long. South Hadley joined the group probably midway through the season, and those are the favorites for sure. And any of those teams can win a Western Mass D3 championship.
There's no question about it. This is going to be a tremendous tournament because you've got 4 really strong teams there. I think of the 4 top teams, I think South Hadley is the weakest of the 4. And so it'll be interesting, especially if South Hadley gets the number 1 seed. It'll be interesting to see who gets the 8-9 seed, because I'll tell you, they may look at that and say, hey, we got to break by getting South Hadley. They're the weakest on paper and in reality of the 3 teams. But we'll know more about that when the seedings come out on Saturday. On the boys' side in Division III, there you see it, Savas. This team is for real. In the past, Rick, we've seen Savas get the 1 or 2 ranking with records of 12-8 and 10-10. They've got high rankings. This is a real team here at 15-4. They are the overwhelming number 1 seed, both strength of schedule, tournament wins, etc. They are the clear favorite. But I'll tell you, I think Waukeena is going to get the 2 seed here without question. And I think Waukeena, if they can stay away from Savas and get on the right side of the bracket, I think it sets up a great matchup in the finals between Savas and Waukeena.
Yeah, you take a look at Frontier and East Hampton at 4-5 with incredible records and good ball clubs, but I just don't think they have the strength of the Waukeena Warriors. Again, a Berkshire County team, very tall, athletic, physical,
right.
And 4 big scores and a bench. They get a lot of kids off the bench that contribute. Narragansett, we talk about every week on the show, Tim. We don't know a lot about them. They're from Central Mass, but they don't play many Western Mass teams in the regular season. They do, however, have to play in the D3 Western Mass tournament. And Savas earned that number 1 spot this year. Nobody could say that they were 9-11 or 10-10 and got the number 1. They deserve it based upon that strength of schedule.
Right. But we're going to know the answer to all those questions on Saturday afternoon. And, of course, we're going to be here at Northern Berkshire Community Television live at 1 o'clock for the seed announcement and a selection. We're going to hopefully have some special guests that will join us in studio and by telephone to give us their thoughts on the seedings and where they fall in the Western Mass tournament. And that's going to be coming up on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock, Rick.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. We did live last year, had all the results ahead of time, and that's great. We're very hopeful that with some help through the internet and contacting a few people, the MIA will have the selection ready for us, and we'll be ready to go.
We'll be ready to go 1 o'clock.
Can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We hope so. We've got our computers here running, so we'll see. Hey, for Rick Bull, I'm Tim Morey. Thanks again for watching here on High School Basketball Weekly. We'll see you on Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock.
So long, everybody.